I'm Local12.com digital sports columnist and editor Richard Skinner with some instant analysis after the Bengals make some changes to the coaching staff on this Monday morning. The Bengals firing defensive coordinator Lou Anarumo, offensive line coach, run game coordinator Frank Pollack, linebackers coach James Bettcher, and defensive line coach Marion Hobby. No doubt that Anarumo, not a surprise to anybody that he was fired, although we can argue whether or not he was made the scapegoat. His defense in 2022 ranked 7th in points allowed, 6th in yards allowed in the NFL, but slipped badly the last couple of seasons, this season finishing 25th in both categories. But he also was dealt a bad deck personnel-wise. One legitimate defender on the front four, and that's Trey Hendrickson, who had the 17.5 sacks. That's half of the sack total on this defense. Linebackers weren't great. Secondary struggled at times, although Cam Taylor-Britt did have a nice comeback to the last handful of games and did play well against Pittsburgh. But this is a defense that's really void of personnel that can make plays. And I'm not sure that's Lou Anarumo's fault. But listen, this is how the NFL works. After you've not made the playoffs back-to-back years, after a run of going to the Super Bowl and the AFC Championship game, somebody or somebodies are going to pay the price. I think the die was cast a few weeks ago where it was concerned with Anarumo and maybe all of these coaches. And I will say that's the one thing I'll give the Bengals credit for. They didn't take the final 5-game stretch and go, okay, things are okay now. Things are trending in the right direction. I think sometimes that's a bad way to go. You can recall they did that with Marvin Lewis in 2017. Looked like he was gone the week they were playing at Minnesota. In fact, there were national reports that he was out and quitting, and that turned out not to be the case. They win the last two, and they retained Marvin for one more year in 2018, and that was a disaster, and then they finally let him go and hired Zac Taylor. But again, I'm not so sure you can pin all of the blame on the defense on Lou Anarumo. Again, he was dealt a bad deck from a personnel standpoint. Continues to be Duke Tobin in the personnel department keep getting a pass in all of this. And maybe they'll always get a pass. I don't know. But here's what I do know now. Zac Taylor has to get this decision right on the defensive coordinator front. That defensive coordinator then needs to get the position coaches right on the defensive line and at the linebacker spots. But it starts with Zac. The decision has to be a good one. He needs to make a quality hire here, because if things go haywire again in 2025, the scapegoat then turns to Zac Taylor. And I think he knows that. And I get it. You need a new voice sometimes. You need somebody with different ideas, fresh ideas. You can argue that the defensive players, the young defensive players, didn't develop because of Lou Anarumo. I would argue that maybe they didn't develop because they weren't as good as their draft slot or as good as they were projected to be. They need something out of Myles Murphy next season. They need Cam Taylor-Britt to keep taking steps forward. They need Jordan Battle to take a step forward. They need DJ Turner to come back and take a step forward. And maybe it is on a new defensive coordinator to do those things. I do know this. 2025 is going to be a season in which Zac Taylor is going to be under the microscope, because the Bengals can't miss a playoffs for a third straight time, or somebody other than a coordinator could and should pay the price for it.